Happy Wednesday. So good to see you. I'm Kim Calv, and hopefully you join me every single week. But if you don't, if you are new around these parts because you saw that we were having this mini workshop today and you were like, I have questions about LinkedIn, I have questions about creating content, I have questions about really utilizing and leveraging LinkedIn as a platform, well, then you are in the right place. And you might think that it's going to be me sharing all of my tips and tricks with you, and that is correct. However, there's also going to be lots of other people that are also sharing their tips and tricks here in the chat. So I really encourage you to get those fingers stretched out and ready to go so that you can add all of your helpful tips and tricks and tactics that work well for you. Because why wouldn't you share? Sharing is caring. Don't keep all the goodness for yourself. If you are joining on your favorite podcast network a few days after this airs live, no big deal. I'm still happy to answer any of your questions about LinkedIn. You can just reach out to me on any of the platforms, the platform of your choice, and I will be happy to answer that. Big hi to James and Giacomo and Jim and Jeff. And I love seeing smart, talented people joining these because, again, the goodness is from all of us. I am so eternally grateful. If you're new and you're not quite sure how these mini workshops work, no worries. We're going to go through each step one by one. I love a good agenda just so you can see what's coming up next. So good news is we already did the first thing, which is meet each other. I'm Kim, so it's so nice to meet you. We are going to go through things that you should be sharing on LinkedIn, how to create a schedule. We're going to be going over kind of homework, best practices, people that I think that you should copy or learn from. And we're also going to go through some no-nos, some things that I absolutely do not think that you should do. And we are also going to talk about some really great, case studies where you can see exactly how to leverage your LinkedIn platform to bring you more opportunities, more business, more money, more goodness. And that's why we're all here. Big thanks to Savan, who has already said that your Nano Tips course on LinkedIn helped. That is correct. I also have some courses over on LinkedIn Learning if you didn't know that, because again, I know we only have like 45 minutes together today. So I'm going to try to jam, pack as much as I can in here. And I'm also going to get a chance to answer your questions, your concerns about LinkedIn, questions that you have about creating content on the platform. As you have those, don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Throw them in the chat so that we can dialogue in real time. I don't want to wait till the end. There's going to be a lot that I'm going to try to get through. So I want to make sure that we can jam as much goodness together as humanly possible. So are you ready? Let's dive in. So just so I can get kind of a lay of the land of who is here and kind of how you've been leveraging the LinkedIn platform thus far. Throw in the chat, you can just, or again, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast and you're folding laundry or walking the dog or doing the dishes, you can just kind of answer this question in your head. But if you are here live, I would love to know if you post on LinkedIn. So you can just throw a yes or a no or an explanation if you're feeling frisky in the chat, because I just would love to see kind of who's posting, who's more just consuming. Maybe LinkedIn for you is a place to get news, is a place to kind of check out who's working where and, who got a promotion, or maybe it's a place to find recruiters. So it's not necessarily a place that you post to, but it's a place that you go to for resources. So James is saying that he is posting almost daily, which is, top tier. I think you even beat me on that, James. Todd is saying occasionally, just it's always good to see. Jeff is probably in my camp, which is not often enough. So even I myself need a good kick in the butt sometimes when I realize that I haven't been posting quite as much as I would like to or should. Jim is saying, don't really post that much. And Abby is all about consuming and just not really into the posting, which we're going to go over that too. That's totally fine. I think it's good to just kind of realize like, am I posting to the platform? Really, how are you leveraging the platform so that we can know our starting point? Like, where are we starting from? And it's good for me to know the starting point so that I can kind of give tips and tricks to everyone based on how you're utilizing the platform and where exactly you are in the process. Because I'm going to have tips for everyone, whether you are like James and posting every day, or whether you are like Bill, 2 or 3 times a week, or whether you're like Abby, which is like not at all. So there's going to be tips and tricks for everyone across the spectrum. Not to worry, you're in good hands. I just want to kind of zoom out a little bit because whenever I talk about LinkedIn and talk about the platform and utilizing it and potentially posting on it or potentially engaging with it, people are always like, well, it's so loud, it's so crowded. And to that, I say, yes and no. So, yes, in that there are 1 billion, yes, billion with a B. Just last year, LinkedIn crossed the 1 billion mark. So 1 billion members on the platform across 200 countries. So pretty much globally, there's a few places that don't have it, obviously, but most of the time you will find LinkedIn. It is translated into 27 languages. It is truly a global network. But what I think is really interesting is out of that 1 billion, how many people are actually posting on it? And that's what I think is really interesting because it is only 1% of people that actually share content, which means 99% agree with Matt. I hate LinkedIn, super cringy. 99% of people are like Matt, just kind of thinking, oh, this is a little cringe, or they're like Abby, where they're like, I'm just consuming on it, but I'm not posting or sharing on it, which means comparatively to Instagram, comparatively to Facebook, some of these other platforms, that means your content and the things that you share have even more of an opportunity to be seen by people on the platform because there is simply less noise. There's less space. There's less people that are utilizing the platform. So I always tell people, like, if you're going to start, like, now is the time. The perfect time was yesterday. The next best time is right now. Just because we're sort of in this era that LinkedIn is starting to, if anybody has seen the feature, the video feature that has rolled out now on mobile, they're really plussing up their newsletter game. Microsoft, who owns LinkedIn, is dumping more and more money into the platform, which means it's going to get more crowded real soon. So as we have these good stats, as we have the ability to make sure that our content is being seen, that is really why we want to use this as much as possible and really supercharge the way we are leveraging this network. So let's dig into what our first step is when we're thinking about posting content on LinkedIn. And listen, guys, I am all about baby steps, really baby steps, like the tiniest of steps, which is step 1, set a goal, which is 1 post. And notice that I'm telling you what that goal is, because sometimes we will get on these mini workshops and people will be pumped. And 45 minutes later, they're like, yeah, Kim, I'm going to post 2 times a week, 3 times a week. And just like every New Year's, I know you've had this happen where you say to yourself, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to run that 3 miles. I'm going to do those 10 push-ups. I'm going to do those 100 sit-ups. And then we get to like February 1 and you're like, so about those 100 sit-ups, haven't been doing those. So I know the feeling of like, we get so excited that we kind of set these big goals, but then life happens and we don't actually attain them. So before you get ahead of yourself, I'm going to set the goal for you, which is 1 post. That is it. Not 1 post a week, not 1 post a month, just 1. That is all I'm asking for. 1 post. That is it. And if you are saying to yourself, oh, Kim, I'm already feeling anxiety about that 1 post. Once again, I hear you. I'm with you. I have created a resource. You can go to whatdoipost.com and I have compiled, I think it's like 25 or 30 ideas all about what you can post with different examples. So again, I've got you. I know that that can be intimidating, but again, like I said, we're going to have all different sides of the spectrum. So for that one post that I'm encouraging you to do, the next question is, well, what do I even share? What do I do? Like, what do I share about? What do I figure out? Like, where is my special thing that I can post about and know that I'm feeling really confident? And that to me is the secret sauce and intersection of these three items. The first item is what you actually like to talk about. And this is very easy to figure out because it's the subject that at a dinner party, if this comes up, you're gone for 20 minutes because you are on and on and on. So for some people, it's sales. For some people, it's marketing. For some people, like my nephew, it's Legos. I don't know what it is for you, but it is that subject when it comes up, you're like 15, 20 minutes. It could be gardening. I don't know, but it's just a subject that you get super excited about. And you're like, I could talk about this forever. Like I'm into this. The second thing is what you're actually good at. So you might enjoy talking about Olympic gymnastics, but you can't do a cartwheel. So this is where the first overlap happens. So not only do you have to enjoy talking about it, you have to actually be good at it. So again, going back to our sales example, if you love talking about sales or cool sales articles that you've read or cool sales ads that you've seen, and you're also pretty good at sales and you work in sales, well, that is a good overlap of those two things. And the third thing is finally, again, really honing in on what you could talk about for hours. So a subject that you are not going to get sick of no matter what. So something that you're good at, something that you actually like, and something that you could talk about for hours. The intersection of those 3 points are exactly what you should start to talk about. So for James, it's motorcycles and gardening, which I love that because you can pick a subject like motorcycles, like gardening, and you can tie that into your content. And in fact, I highly encourage everybody, if you haven't already seen it, Shelby actually did very much that this week, James, where she posted a video or a picture rather of this beautiful watermelon that she had grown in her garden. And she gave this great analogy to social media. So again, using something that she really loves to talk about, gardening, and likening it to social media, to posting. It's just a brilliant example. Or Giacomo with Taylor Swift. This is another great example. I've done this before in content where you take something that Taylor Swift has done or said, and you sort of dissect it and give it your own little twist about either why it was smart or why it was interesting or, you know, how you would have done something differently. That's a big one as well. So you can take these subjects that you're already excited about, that you're already passionate about, and add your own special spin on them. Again, going back to that subject of what you're actually good at. Is it sales? Is it marketing? Is it creative design? Whatever it is, that is just so important and such a key to success when you're thinking about what do I post. So again, I know we're talking about a wide spectrum. There are going to be people that are leaning in, like Rachel, who are saying, yes, it gets easier. I did my one post and one post turned into 2 posts and 2 posts turned into 3 posts. And now I really enjoy posting on the platform and it's been great. And I know that there is someone sitting in this mini workshop or listening to this while they fold their laundry that are thinking, Kim, I am not like you. I am not like Rachel. I am not getting motivated to post. Even if I love talking about something, I just know myself and it's really hard. It's really hard for me to motivate and post. Okay, this next one is for you because I understand that we're all on different sides of the spectrum. This is what I like to call lazy engagement. So lazy engagement is a way to be active on the platform, exactly what it sounds like, a way that is a really low lift. So that can be something as easy as liking other people's posts. It can be something like commenting on other people's posts. It can be asking questions on, you guessed it, other people's posts. Or fourth, tagging a friend on, wait for it, other people's posts. So you can engage on the platform in a meaningful way on other people's content. So I wanted to show an example of this, and I'll explain it to anybody who's listening on podcast form. But on the screen, I have a screenshot of a post from this morning, literally, because I wanted it to be really, really recent, of my friend Zakia. She is reposting this great article on LinkedIn, and she's writing about her time at Time Inc., which was a former job she had, and how it's all about mentorship and how she was mentored at Time Inc. And now she has in turn taken on a mentor as she has developed out the corporate ladder. And this person, Zakia, was actually a mentor to me in addition to a friend. So I made sure to like the post. And I also made a comment saying, you were such a brilliant mentor to me. I learned so much from you. And then I went ahead and I tagged 3 other people that were also great mentors to me when I first started. So again, an example of multiple ways to lazy engage. I liked the post, I added a comment, I tagged people that it also resonated with. So again, just a really strong example of engaging in a way to meet you where you're at. So again, I know there's going to be a wide range. So we want to meet people where they're at. So in that case, really saying, okay, if I'm not going to make a post today, which I normally don't, because when we're doing lives together, I think, oh God, people are going to be sick of me. I can't be posted on days that we're doing a live. I will make sure to instead actively engage on other people's contents, especially on days when I'm going to do a live. I love that Jeff mentions, what do I consider kind of the intent of posting, or where does that kind of inspiration come from? And for me, it's really all about what is going on in the world that day, what's going on in my industry that day. To me, like, recency is something that inspires me a lot. It doesn't have to inspire everyone, but it's something that inspires me a great deal. And as kind of a inspiration to that, we're going to go a little out of order here. That's why I'm looking at my slides, because I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that Jeff mentioned this, because there's so many features on LinkedIn that can really help with this recency and kind of help you get inspired to do some posts and to make comments and to really lean into new content ideas. And that is really digging into all of their features. So one of the features that they have now is this LinkedIn news section. So you will see this in the upper right-hand column when you are logging into the platform, and it has news stories. So when I logged in this morning, these are the top stories I saw. Bank of America hikes minimum wage, annual inflation hits a 3-year low, Campbell's wants to drop the soup. I had a lot of thoughts about that because I love Campbell's soup, but just kind of what's going on in the news. And if you have ever clicked on one of these, that expands into a larger section that editors have come in and picked up LinkedIn posts that are talking about that subject. So they are talking about Campbell's soup, or they are talking about Bank of America. So I always tell people that for me, that adds a lot of inspiration and immediacy into what I'm talking about. So even if it's something as silly as, I really enjoy Campbell's soup and they had one of the best marketing things that I've seen in the last couple of years, and here's what they did. It might not have to do necessarily with the article. So it might not have to do with the fact that Campbell's soup is trying to drop the soup, but it might just kind of spark another idea, kind of one of those things where you jump from one idea to another idea. It might spark, oh, that reminds me of the Campbell's soup ad I saw, 10 years ago, and how impactful it was and how much it meant to me. And I'll go dig up the old, magazine ad that I thought about. So again, I use that section a lot to inspire me to kind of get ideas. So I would say if that is an inspiration to you, copy my homework. Maybe it'll be helpful, maybe not. One thing, though, that's going to be helpful no matter what is setting up time to actually do the work, or what I like to call a realistic schedule. Again, going back to the fact that we all get excited and we set these big goals, but then they're not actually realistic. So creating a realistic schedule. So again, I love visual examples. And so I think it's important to kind of be honest with yourself and then really visually see it in your everyday life. So get honest with you. What does that look like? Is it 3 times a week? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? Is it once every other month? You know, what season are you in? Are you in a really crunch time at work? I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I was explaining to her that I do a lot of work in the entertainment industry with our marketing agency, Bright Ideas Only. And December is always really slow for us between like Hanukkah and Christmas, and the kids are out of school and everybody kind of pushes things till January, like nothing actually gets done. And she kind of made this comment and she's like, well, it must be nice. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and I just totally forgot this, but she works at a company where holiday, 40% of their business is done in December. 40% of their business is done in 1 month because it's all around gifting. And obviously there's kind of no bigger gift giving season than Christmas and Hanukkah. So just kind of shows you the perspective that, you know, in my mind, I was like, oh, December, we kind of push things off till January, super lax, super, you know, no big deal. Whereas to her, you know, December was like her Super Bowl, like all the pressure, all the craziness, all the long hours were jammed into December. So I always say, like, be honest with yourself. What season are you in? Are you in a really busy season of work where you're like, yeah, listen, you know, once a week, totally doable in September, once a week in December, no go, not going to happen. Too busy, too much going on. Or in my case, you know, 3 times a week, super kind of hard right now in my busy season, but in December, not as much going on, like a little more easier for me, a little more attainable. So figure out kind of where you are in this season and where that might fit for you, because it's going to look different no matter what. Once you've figured that out, really kind of consider what it looks like to adhere to it. So I was talking to another friend and I wanted to put this in here. I was asking him, he had a really lofty goal, which was like, every day I'm going to engage on LinkedIn every day. And once again, I was like, not realistic. I kind of called him out. I was like, you're full of baloney. Like, there's no way you're going to post I'm waiting for the subway. I'm in line waiting for my lunch at Chipotle, whatever it is, wherever I'm waiting in line, because we all wait for something on a day-to-day basis. Nothing in the world is instantaneous. He said, I pull up my LinkedIn and I like or comment on 3 posts. Just kind of scroll through the feed, boop, 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 like or comment on 3 posts. And then I put my phone away and I enjoy, you know, continuing to wait for my coffee meeting to get there, or continuing to wait for my Chipotle burrito, or for my prescriptions, or whatever it is. And I thought that was such a genius way to think about it. Because I think for me, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I think like, okay, I have to be at my desk and I have to set aside 10 minutes, you know, before I check my email or after I check my email for the day, to really go on and, you know, sit there and do this thing. And it really took him saying, no, I literally do it on my mobile phone. I literally do it in a few minutes while I'm waiting in line. That it really sparked me to say, oh, you're right. I don't necessarily have to be at my desk. I don't necessarily have to sit there and, you know, be typing on my keyboard. I could be typing on my phone, or I could be doing my favorite is the talk to text. It drives my husband absolutely crazy because he thinks I'm talking to him all the time. And in reality, I'm talking to my phone. I'm sitting there going like, yes, Rich, thank you, period. Please tell me when you're going to be here next, period. And it, you know, drives him crazy because he thinks I'm talking to him, but alas, I'm not. I'm doing talk to text. But I thought that waiting method was really smart and effective. So again, just using that as a way to say, how can I better utilize the platform, whether it is I'm going to set aside real time to sit here and create content, or I'm going to kind of do a lazy engagement strategy on the go. If you're going to create content, if you're like, Kim, I got the lazy engagement, no problemo, but I also really want to create content on my own, that I will say you have to set aside time. You have to set aside time. So for me, this is a real reminder that I have in my calendar. So I set my Google Calendar to remind me every single Tuesday from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. to spend time creating content. Listen, I'm not always great at it, but it's in my calendar. And for somebody like me that kind of lives and dies by their calendar, it is really essential to have the time blocked off. Because if you don't have the time blocked off, you're not going to do it. You just aren't. You're busy. You have a lot going on. You have your home life, you have your work life, you have your family, you got your friends, maybe you got kids, maybe you got a dog. Like, you got a lot going on. So you really have to create space, or else it's just not going to happen. You're too busy. You got too many other things that need your time and attention. So you really have to take the time to say, okay, I'm going to create space in my day to get this done. I want to cover this question from Giacomo because I think other people might have this same kind of thought processes too, which is, what type of content do you think is the most engaging? Is it written? Is it video? What are your best tips? I'm so glad you brought this up because there are so many different ways to share, and we're going to break down each one of those ways to share. But the reason that this question is so good is it's different for every single person. And what I mean by that is there are some people that love, love, love to write. And there are some people that love, love, love to talk. And neither one is right or wrong. I will say what I've seen recently so far on the platform is they are heavily, heavily, heavily over indexing both on visuals and video. Visuals can be photos. It can be, if you've seen anybody who screen captures like tweets or like their notepad on their iPhone or something, but it's still an image, or it's a picture of themselves, or, something that they're doing at work. And my guess, this is not official, hashtag not sponsored by LinkedIn, but my guess is what this is they are really trying to compete with TikTok, compete with some of these other platforms. And so they're really trying to over index on visuals and video. Could be wrong. Don't hold me to it, but that is just my best guess. So, but any type of content is really important. So we're going to break down each of these. And I think the best way to do it, to Giacomo's point, is to really copy somebody else's homework. I'm a very visual learner. I work well when I can see kind of what people are talking about. So when Giacomo says, like, is it written? Is it video? You yourself might be listening to this going, what the heck is Giacomo talking about? Like, written content versus video content. We're going to break each one of those down, and I'm going to give you examples that you can go see. So one of my favorites is long form content. So anybody that really enjoys writing, LinkedIn has an awesome newsletter feature. You really might want to utilize it if you enjoy this type of content. So here are 3 individuals whose content I think you should go check out. Number 1, Gemma Lee Roberts. She has one of the most popular newsletters on LinkedIn. It's called Mindset Matters. You can also look up Tatiana Korluvu, and hers is called Stronger. That is a really great newsletter for you to check out. And the last one is Selena Rezvani. So all 3 of these women have these long form newsletters. If you are interested in long form writing, if you are interested in these newsletters, I highly encourage you check these out just to, again, kind of get a lay of the land. What are they doing? What are some tips or tricks that I can steal that, if they're doing something right, the best way to emulate that is to see what they're doing and see what you can steal for yourself. Obviously, don't steal the content, but you can steal kind of the ideas and the way they use images. I think that's really powerful. And I want to highlight what James is saying here too, which is the power of the newsletter feature on LinkedIn. It is one of the best if you decide to do it, because all of your connections are already connected with you on LinkedIn. And James said, I just started a monthly newsletter on LinkedIn. Within 24 hours, I had over 300 subscribers. I could not believe it. I believe it. And it is one of many stories that I have heard because LinkedIn's feature just projects that out to so many of your connections. And it's not going to be for everyone. So Gil is like, I don't know about that. Sometimes short form turns into long form, but sometimes even then I don't like it. So I get it. It's not going to be for everyone. But if you are into that long form writing and those newsletters, that is a great example that James just gave. If you are somebody that really enjoys video, so video is kind of your home base, you love speaking to camera, that comes very easily to you. Here are another 3 people that I think you should check out that heavily use video on LinkedIn. Number 1, Jessica Chen, ton of video content on LinkedIn. Highly, highly, highly recommend you go check her out. Also, if you join us here each week, you're going to recognize the screenshot that I have up on the screen because that is Nasheen Chen, who just joined us 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now. And she is all about, using your voice and speaking up and your presence and your executive presence. So she also does a lot of video content. So if you are into video, highly recommend that you go check out these creators that are posting a ton of video because you can steal a lot of their homework. If you're like Kim, I kind of want to see a little bit of everything. I want to see people who use pictures. I want to see people who use text. I want to see people who use video. I've compiled the names of 4 people that, in addition to myself, if I might add, that sort of do a mix of it all. They're doing video, they're doing photos, they're doing text. The first is James Lee. That is the screenshot that I included here. This is an example of multiple pictures that LinkedIn now allows you to do. So fun fact, you don't have to just post 1 picture. You can post, as he shows here, 3 pictures, which is really interesting if you want to show a myriad of examples or things that you are working on. You can also check out Jason Pfeiffer. He does a really dynamic job of video versus still images versus examples of things that he's seeing in the world. Dean Carell, another amazing example who's utilizing video both in short form and long form. And then Cody Sanchez is another awesome example on the platform who is really kind of doing a mix of a lot of different things. And you can always check out the people that are in our Coffee with Kim session right now, who are also doing a ton of really great mixes of regular content, video content, a little bit of everything. So I think that that's all super important to remember and really highlights how you can emulate people that are already doing what you want to do. So another thing that I want to bring up before we even get into, I want to make sure we get up to all the questions as well, because then I hate when I don't answer all the questions. But so let's jump into Fatma's question right now, which is, I have a question about impressions and engagements. My articles are getting seen a lot, but not many people are actually interacting with them. Impressions are how many people see your content, and engagement is when people actually do something. So they like it, they comment, they share it, they actually take action. How can I boost these numbers? What are some good targets to aim for? I've only been writing for about a week. Number 1, Fatma, congrats, you're writing. So round of applause to even writing. 2, the best way that I've found to boost that number when it comes to lots of people are seeing it, but they're not actually engaging with it, is to treat it like a conversation. And what I mean by that is, if you and I were sitting down for coffee, we would sit down and you'd say, "Hey, Kim," and I would say, "Hey, Fatma," and then I would say, "What's going on with you?" or "What's something cool that you've seen?" And almost like your long form content, you might say, "Well, I went to this really great conference, and I'm going to tell you the 3 things that I learned at this conference. First," and you might go on a 10 to 15 minute tangent telling me all about the conference and your 3 takeaways and why it was so interesting. And I might just be there kind of sipping my tea, going, oh, okay, and kind of nodding along, listening to you. But then at some point you would kind of come to a halt. You would get to your third point, or you'd say, and then, it was a really easy flight out of St. Louis at the end of the conference, and I made my flight, and I was so happy to get home to my bed and my dog and to, go out to dinner that night with my friends. And then you kind of naturally stop. Most of the time, if we're in a conversation together, you would say something like, and what did you do this weekend? Or why didn't you come to the conference? Or, you'd create a dialogue somehow. You wouldn't just kind of stop talking and then stare at me like, unblinking, like just death stare into my eyes. It would be a dialogue. So what I tell people is, when you're creating content on any platform, try to make it a conversation. Ask a question. Ask a question at the beginning, ask a question at the end, ask people to input. So if you and I were sitting there having coffee and you said, oh, I'm going to tell you my top 3 takeaways, about the sales conference that I went to in St. Louis and how great it was. At the end of it, you might say, now out of those 3, which did you think was the most surprising? And I might go, well, now that you think about it, that second point was actually so surprising. I never would have thought about that. So you're creating that dialogue. So I would say, as much as possible, when you are writing or in video, any form, if you're looking to really boost those engagement numbers, instead of just impressions, people seeing the content, but instead people taking action on it, ask them to do something. It's also just kind of fun when you ask people what their opinion is, or agree or disagree. Honestly, agree or disagree is also just a really great way to boost engagement, especially if it's something that people are going to have an opinion on. And it's just good to see, like, hey, who agrees with this? Who doesn't? I think that that's also really important to think about. And actually, I'm just curious, because I feel like we have a really great group that's here today. How often are you yourself engaging with other people's content? So actually just put a yes, just drop a yes in the chat. Or again, if you're folding laundry or walking the dog, you can just answer yes in your own mind if you're listening to this. But if you yourself in the last 2 days have commented on somebody's article or newsletter, just drop yes or no in the comments, because I have a theory of what's about to happen in the comments, but I'm very curious what actually happens. So drop a yes in if you yourself have commented on somebody's post or article, and then drop a no if just, the last 2 days have been busy. Maybe you read a couple things on LinkedIn, but you didn't actually have time to drop a comment, or you didn't actually have time to post a thought. So Gil says yes, James, yes, Jeff, yes, Sadama, yes. I myself, I will say yes. Shelby's saying no to articles. So I haven't actually, really posted to articles, but yes to some other posts. Craig said yes, and Carrie said yes. What I will say is, you're getting yeses from Rachel and people that are on the platform. But what most people don't realize, and what James will realize as he talked about starting a newsletter earlier, that if you start a newsletter on LinkedIn, those actually go to people's email inbox. So if you sign up for a newsletter on LinkedIn, like I sign up for Mindset Matters, I get Mindset Matters in my email box. Now, it also comes up on the LinkedIn platform, but I get it in my email box. So what might be happening, Fatima, I don't know, is people could be seeing it in their email, but they're not actually on the platform to respond. So again, encourage as much as you can that engagement. So say, hey, what do you think? Agree or disagree? Start the conversation. But it could just be that people are consuming it, but they're just consuming it in their inbox, and they're not consuming it on the platform, where it's really easy for somebody to type in or throw a like or engage in some way. So again, just a thought, not necessarily like possible, but just throwing it out there. I want to go over 2 sort of content no-nos that I see all the time, that every time I see them, I totally cringe, because I'm just like, oh, don't do it. It's a sinking ship. The first one being, if at all humanly possible, as I just said, don't make it all about you. Think to yourself, can someone share this information? can they regurgitate this information with a colleague or with a friend at a dinner party and sound smart? So just like in that example I just gave, which is, hey, I went to this great conference in St. Louis, and here are my top 3 takeaways that I thought were really interesting. That is really helpful because I might hear those top 3 takeaways, and 2 days from now, I may say, well, I was just talking to my friend who came back from a conference in St. Louis, and did you know, and kind of rehash maybe 1 or 2 of the things that you shared. What's not as helpful that I see a lot on LinkedIn is someone will post a picture, with them, like a selfie, them and a thumbs up sign next to a conference name in St. Louis. And it'll just say, had a great time in St. Louis at the conference. And that's it. And then you're just like, cool, glad you had so much fun at that conference that I don't know what it's about. Don't know if it was good. Don't know if you had any smart takeaways. Like, it's sort of a nothing burger. It's a nothing burger. And so I see that a lot on LinkedIn, and I'm always like, oh no, because it has potential. Someone took the picture, someone took the time to, type on the platform, but then it's like, it's missing that last step. It's missing that last step, which is giving somebody else, a takeaway or a tip or something like that. So Savan is asking, I'd love to share about this new book that I read. It's a New York Times bestseller. Fun fact, I've also read this book, and maybe other people who are listening have read this book. And that book is Atomic Habits by James Clear. So Savan is saying, I love this book. I thought it was really helpful. I want to share, maybe the best thing I learned from this book, or maybe an interesting tip that I got from that book. Any suggestion on how I can share this? There are so many ways that you can share this, but I think that one of my favorite that I would love to see from you is take a picture with the book, even if it's on Kindle, hold up your Kindle, take a picture, or have somebody take a picture of you with the book. Because I think it's always good when people can see your smiling face and, see you beaming back at them, and say, I just finished this book. Here is my top takeaway that was such a game changer for me. And pick one of your top takeaways, or maybe it's your top 2 takeaways, or maybe it's your top 3 takeaways, whatever it is. Or here's a tactic that helped me so much. So again, you don't have to regurgitate the whole book. We certainly don't want 30 of your takeaways. So I know it's hard, but narrow it down to like 1 or 2, and post that picture of you holding the book and say, I just finished this book. It was amazing. Here are the top 2 things that I learned from the book. Or even better, if you can manage, start to implement those tips or tactics that you learned. And after you've implemented them, share how they changed for you. So the best example I have of this is, if you've ever watched any of like those home makeover shows where it's like the house that kind of looks disheveled and crazy, and then by the end of the episode, the house looks like beautiful and organized and vacuumed and all the things. So you can say, hey, 2 months ago, before this book, I was late to meetings. I had never meditated a day in my life, and I never went to the gym. And after reading this book, 60 days later, I'm going to the gym 3 days a week. I can do a pull-up, and I'm meditating twice a week. So you can also show kind of that progression. Like, here was my life before the book. I've let some time period pass, 30 days, 60 days, a year, 6 months, whatever. And now here's the outcome. So that's 2 ideas that hopefully are helpful for you. So again, if you can, with these posts, that's an example of making it about you, but also kind of giving other people hope and saying like, hey, maybe I should read this book too. Another thing I see all the time that just gives me the cringe, I hate it, is people that overload posts with hashtags. So they will post something, and then at the very end of their post, you will see like a bajillion hashtags that they've like hashtag business, hashtag leadership, hashtag coaching, hashtag, a million hashtags. It's too many. So LinkedIn has come out and said, best practice, do 2 or 3 I actually read an article just the other day that, again, I couldn't find the article, or else I would have dropped it in here. It was one of those things where like I read it on my phone, but I didn't save it. And then of course, when I went to look for it this morning, I couldn't find it, but I know it exists because I definitely read it, which I will maybe find it. Is LinkedIn is even saying that they're going to start to sunset hashtags altogether. That because of AI and because of keyword optimization, you actually don't even need hashtags anymore. That LinkedIn is going to start to utilize AI to really crawl everybody's content. And just as the keywords come up, the AI will recognize it. So again, I know I read that article. I'm so sorry I don't have it to share with you, but it was basically talking about how they were going to, in the future, kind of start to sunset those hashtags. So as much as possible, do not overuse hashtags, literally maybe 3 hashtags. And again, I think they might be sunsetting them. So don't hold me to that as much as you can. Again, I really just think it's important to create good content, create that dialogue. You don't need these hashtags. You don't need anything fancy. It's not anything that you need to kind of overly concern yourself with. I always say, worry about making helpful, great content, great, helpful content. Don't worry about the rest, about like, does it have this hashtag? What does it look like? Don't worry about that. It's really just, you don't need it. It's not necessary. It's totally fine. I want to get to some of these questions also, because I know I've tried to jam everything into 45 minutes and it's always so hard. I wanted to highlight this point that Rachel had said earlier, because I think it's helpful for us to kind of keep in mind as we're wrapping up, which is this is muscle memory. It gets easier the more you do it. And I love how she talks about as ideas come to her, because ideas don't always come to you when you're sitting at your desk. They come while you're walking the dog. They come to you in the shower. They come to you while you're in an exercise class. Rachel said, I just jot these ideas down, in a Google Doc, or for me, I use Notion. Some people use the Notes app on their iPhone, whatever it is. Don't worry about actually creating the posts. Like sometimes it's just kind of capturing that inspiration, capturing that light bulb moment, and worrying about actually creating the format of the post or actually creating the content of the post later. But just kind of capturing that goodness, capturing that little bit of spark while you have it before it kind of flutters into the ether, never to be seen again. So really just kind of as much as possible, learning that muscle of, I thought of something, let me write it down. Maybe I make a post on it later. Maybe I don't, but at least I kind of started that process of writing things down. I know, as I said before, that I was going to try to jam as much as I possibly could into 45 minutes, and I really have tried. However, I do have an entire course that kind of covers this, not as quickly, because again, I'm trying to like jam everything in. But if you are subscribed to LinkedIn Learning, you can look it up. It's called Launching Your Creator Business. Fun fact, we're actually changing the name of it because I don't like this name. And LinkedIn picked it, and I really don't like it because I don't think that that's really what the course is about. It's really more about kind of creating content on the platform and really utilizing it to its fullest. So fun fact, we are going through a name change on this course right now, but if you are looking for it in the meantime, it's called Launching Your Creator Business. Again, it's one of those things where I go through things a little bit more slowly. Sometimes after these sessions, I get people being like, you went too fast, like you talked too fast. And I'm like, I'm trying to jam it all in, people. I only have 45 minutes. I'm jamming it all in. So I'm trying to like add as many links and resources so that if you have follow-ups, you can go find them afterwards. If you're like Kim, you talked a lot today about, kind of varsity level stuff, and I'm more at JV level. I always tell people, no worries. You can go to helpmylinkedin.com, and on a very, very basic level, I have some LinkedIn profile tips that you can, steal and use for leveraging on the platform. Because again, it's like, I try not to make it harder than it is. I know that sometimes this can be a lot, and kind of creating content can be a lot. So as much as possible, just wherever you are in the journey, whether you are just starting or whether you are, somebody who's been posting once a week, trying to jam as much into 45 minutes and then kind of hitting everybody where they're at in the process. I know it's hard, and I know I go fast, and I know I talk a lot, and I know I'm trying to really jam as much as possible. But I also know we're all trying to give all of our tips and tricks as quickly as possible. So I have time for like maybe one or two more questions. If you have a question and you're joining live, pop it in the chat. Again, if you're listening to this later and you're like, oh, Kim, I wasn't able to join live because I had a call with my boss or I was in a different time zone, no worries. I will happily answer your question. You can just DM me or message me on LinkedIn, or you can DM message me on Instagram, whatever it is. I'm happy to answer the question for you at a later date. Or if you're listening and you're like, I thought of a question 2 days from now, or I saw something on LinkedIn and had a question about it, I will happily answer your question later. Don't feel the pressure of like, I can't come up with a question right at this exact minute. But I wanted to make sure that if there were any kind of lingering questions out there or lingering things in the back of your mind, that we could make sure to cover them. So if you do have a question, pop it in the chat now. I will give you a bit of a homework assignment in addition to the homework assignment that I gave you earlier, which is just one post whenever, one post this week, one post this month, whenever is convenient for you. Do one post. That is my, again, baby steps, really small. That is my goal for you. And also when you are doing that one thing, to block off time in your calendar. That's like my one big homework assignment for you, because whether you are posting one piece of content in September or 2 or 3, whatever it is, if you don't set aside time, it doesn't happen. You are too busy of a human. You have too much going on between work and friends and life. You have too much going on. If you don't block off time, it just doesn't happen. So as much as possible, please, 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 whether it's an hour, whether it's 30 minutes, whether it's 10 minutes a day, block off time in your calendar to really dig into this content and write that first post. I will also say I would love if you could join these sessions every single Wednesday. We meet here at 1 p.m. Eastern. We have really interesting conversations with many different people who can help us be better versions of ourselves, both in work and in life. So you can always head over to getcoffeewithkim.com and it will add it to your calendar, because like I said before, I'm sort of obsessed with calendars and sort of obsessed with making time to do the work. So if you are like me and you need a calendar reminder, you can go over to getcoffeewithkim.com and we will send a happy little reminder to your calendar so that you can always, always, always join us every single week, because again, it's a fun group. We got a lot going on. I'm really excited for next week because, ooh, baby, do we have a fun conversation with Jan Rutherford. He is one of my favorite LinkedIn Learning instructors. He is a former Green Beret. He is all about self-reliant leadership and grit and really digging into the hard things to make yourself a great leader. And if you are someone that is really kind of wanting to dig into leadership in a more meaningful way, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you join us for that session. It's going to be really, really awesome. It's not next week, it's the week after. Let me correct myself on that. But it's at 1 p.m. Eastern. So definitely want to make sure that you are able to come to that. I also want to answer Lisa's question before we close out, which is, have you heard or do you have thoughts on the emoji trend? So I assume that's kind of using emojis in your content, in your posts. Honestly, I think that's totally fine. I think emojis are fun. I think that they convey, feelings and moods. So I say, if emojis are your thing and you like using them, all for it. Don't feel like you have to, or don't feel like, oh my gosh, it's necessary. And like, if I don't use emojis, my content isn't going to do as well. That's not the case. But if you like using them, if it is fun, I use them all the time. I know Giacomo uses them all the time. I know also if you have a newer Mac computer, my Mac computer doesn't do this because I think my computer is literally from, I think 2019. So my computer is 5 years old. But the newer Mac computers, I know also have a fun little screen where you can press emojis and they automatically go in. I don't know. I don't have one of these fancy computers, but I saw my friend who had one and I was like, when I get a new computer, I want the fancy emoji enabled computer because that looks freaking amazing. So if you like using emojis, if it is easy for you, then absolutely use them. I think they are so fun. I think other people like them too. So don't be afraid of the emoji. Thank you so much for joining me today. I know that you have a lot of places that you could be and a lot of things that you could do. So taking time to invest in your LinkedIn, to invest in creating content, and to being with me and Rich and Jeff and Giacomo and Rachel and Shelby and Fatma and Sangethi, and just being with us and sharing your goodness is always so appreciated. I absolutely adore the fact that you made time to be here today. I hope that you will join again, that you'll head over to Get Coffee with Kim and join us in our following Wednesday sessions, because I think you're pretty great. And I think we have a fun thing going here. So we should keep it going. So thank you so, so much. Have a beautiful rest of the week. And I look forward to seeing you not next Wednesday, but the Wednesday after that. So have a beautiful rest of the week, my friend, and I will see you soon. Bye.